This is an open letter to Mr. Mark Carney. Hello, sir. Bravo, bravo. We understand that you have won the something process in which you are now the chief in Canada. So, well, congratulations, bravo, salute. Here's the thing, sir. However, I was listening to you and it seemed like you can entertain the idea of belonging to some kind of a sane society. It seemed that you wanted to belong to a sane society from what you were saying. But I was wondering, why so late? Why is it? You tell me why so late. I describe it. So in case of suddenly you're very interested in sovereignty and hey folks, hey brothers, we love you, but we have our own home and you have your own home and leave us the fuck alone. We love you. So you understand sovereignty and where the people are, and let them help them keep the system that they have, because any change of the system is going to be very difficult for many people and very beneficial to very few people. Again, BlackRock wants to buy Canada. So Goldman Sachs and BlackRock have agreed and put it in writing that they want to own Canada. And you're screaming foul. And it's like, I'm sorry, you're screaming foul? This principle of might is right and, somebody mightier coming from outside and being able to take over a land of some weaker people, you participated in this nonsense. You participated in Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, Vietnam. You participated in the idea of some people with some stronger military going and taking over lands or trying to take charge of it. No, you weren't there for the oil. You were there for BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. End of story. You were there for BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. A few people got really lucky and rich, what they consider luck, and a lot of people, couple of million dead during that whole process of shit show that you participated in as Canada. I mean, or I don't even want to say Canada, because it's not, it's the Five Eyes, five Anglo-Saxons, five A's. five countries that are linked because of the British rule, because they're majority white. And white ruled, not many, white ruled and majority white, and they want to keep it that way. So, but the same process that right now as we speak, Iraq was in the past. Okay, you didn't know, you weren't exactly on top of it, you got sucked into it. Okay, salute. You weren't aware of it and you were being lied to by your own people and bad people. You lied to us. But we are still hold you, with all honors, because you're our ex-leaders. But, and also we know that all of you lied to us. And you went to war so a few in Wall Street can profit a lot, and many people both between the brown people and even your own pink skin peasants, many casualties. So more between the natives than there were between your people. But you also participated in that. The coalition of the willing, remember? When the French pulled back and they didn't want to participate, you soiled their name. You remember Freedom Fries? Folks, you bully each other. You know, the whole Anglo-Saxon, Western European, white, you know, colonialist, Australian, New Zealander, Canadian, and the fucking British. You are a and you know, Uncle Sam's managers. You're a coalition of willing white people to encourage each other to encroach on others people's property and wealth, just because, you know, doing it to them makes sense. And that's why you're screaming, Mr. Mark Carney. Doing it to them makes sense, but you're appalled that your pink-skinned brother wants to take over your property. You're sort of like, no, pink-skinned brother, we don't do this to each other. No, how about this? How about should the British, the Canadian, and, you know, CIA find something wrong with Uganda again? Can go kick ass? And this is what I'm trying to say, that the whole idea of invading more land in Middle East is sort of like, yeah, let's distract Uncle Sam to invade land in the Middle East instead of thinking of invading land up here in Canada. Because I guess you know your own kind. This is all nonsense. That you guys keep, you know, and your only, let's be frank, your only defense is like, hey brother, I'm white just like you. We both have the right to this land. Let's go. But those brown and black people, their title is not worth much. As we speak, you're funding Israel. Are you kidding me? Expedition of forces for the purpose of taking over a land that up to yesterday had some other name on its title, but forcefully taking it over. It's the same process whether it's being taken over, happening in Palestine, or it's happening in Ontario. Why is it? No, the only logic that this shouldn't happen is that, hey, we are white just like you, we have the right to our property. So isn't that a bit racist? Basically saying that, no, when we go kick ass of yellow and the red and the brown and the green, we go kick their ass, that's okay. Take over their land, that's okay. But, you know, how is this not hypocrisy? How is this not hypocrisy? How is this not, you know, racism? That's saying that here's the thing about, you know as well as I do that people have the kind of government that can keep order. So if the cocksucker over there, like the Iranians or the Iraqis or the Saudis, if those cocksuckers, if they're harsh, because that's their culture, and their people, you know, so in certain matters have to be, you know, some, hopefully the minority of, you know, who try to disrupt their society in Saudi Arabia, for example, they have to be treated so the fucking Saudis can keep some kind of order and sanity going. But you tell the Saudis, go ahead, kill as many as you like, you're our friend, based on economics again. Your whole perspective on your planet, the perspective that you're pushing, Mr. Mark Carney, is the perspective of capitalism. That the whole idea is anything for capital. You know, I understand you were governor of Bank of England too. That's it. It's sort of like these colonies have somehow tried to merge as best as possible in order to combine their lands and their, but go ahead, combine, but you're continuously trying to disrupt the life of people on the other side of the world, in lands that don't belong to you. Constantly trying to teach them how to do business, teach them how to live. If you're not Christian, if you're not, if you did not help us in World War II, if you're not Christian, if you're not, very, very, if you're not any of that, if you're not capitalist or Christian or cocksucker, you are a potential for invasion. If you're not, if you don't play ball, if you don't do exactly as we say, you should prepare to be invaded, because what? It just, Mr. Mark Carney, and this is it. This is when it's happening to you, and suddenly you're appalled. Are you kidding me? Why? This is the same pattern. A bigger force sitting next to a smaller force, and the only thing that is going to change hand is that basically, ownership is going to change from some very rich Canadians to some very rich Americans. That's the only thing, merging of these two countries. That's all it's going to happen. It's sort of like, for the average folks, the only thing that I guess the average people in Canada have going for them is the universal health care. That's my understanding. But the point is that because you also have large military expenditure to go check ass over there. So again, you also neglect your people a lot because of so much expenditure towards conquering more land somewhere else for the benefit of BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. And once BlackRock and Goldman Sachs suddenly see you from the corner of their eye as the next big thing that they like to own, suddenly you're appalled. And your only thing is that, hey, we are white just like you. Let's go to Uganda. Let's kick some ass Uganda. Let's start a radio-free Uganda. How about these folks in Uncle Sam's land? How about some of them started, radio-free Canada, and start funding some, the same way the British have been funding a lot of, unethical groups in the Middle East, just because so they can have a leverage. You fund a freedom fighting army in somewhere else, in somebody else's land, because you want leverage, so you can, get their assets. That's the whole idea behind funding the Azov battalions. You're funding an extremist idea in Ukraine, hoping that this extremist people get into power and start some kind of shit show going. Now we sold them a lot of arms. Now they owe us for those arms. Now they have to turn the keys over to us. Americans are looking at Ukraine, someone like the Israelis are looking at Gaza. It's sort of like, hey dude, throw in the key and go. This is what you are telling the Ukrainians, but this is what Mr. Trump is. Mr. Trump is saying this is already a shitty car. It's falling apart. This is maybe one day was worth a lot, but now Ukraine is worth as much as the price of those weapons that we sent you. So just hand over the keys. Salute to Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. Israelis are looking at the Gaza people are saying that, hey, this is Trump also helped them in stating that, hey, we bashed this place so bad that now it's not worth anything. Just throw in the keys and move on. And even if the natives say that, no, yeah, you bashed it, but we'd still like to stop killing us, they say, no, we're going to continue killing. The killing is not going to stop until you leave. How many degrees, Mr. Mark Carney, how many degrees do you think is the separation between how the recent treatment by Uncle Sam's managers towards you? How much degree of difference do you think is between how Uncle Sam is trying to persuade you to get in the bed peacefully? How many degrees of separation is between what you're doing and what Uncle Sam's managers are doing to you, than exactly what the Israelis are doing to the people of Gaza, or all the Palestinians, Europeans who landed in West Asia? You're okay with, if you were okay with that, you should be okay with this. There is no bombing going on, at least. It's a bigger force who tries to get its way. In this case, access to minerals at cost. Again, this mineral business, yes, is good for BlackRock, for the bottom line, because now at the moment, BlackRock has to buy these minerals from, or BlackRock related corporations have to buy these minerals from the Canadians. So a lot of Canadians get wealthy too in this process of digging up these materials and selling them. But BlackRock prefers to extract themselves, just cutting the middleman. A lot of people get less fed in Canada, and BlackRock gets more fed. That was the same policy about Iraq. It's sort of like, no, we don't need welfare for the Iraqis. That money has to end up in New York at Goldman Sachs. So let's go.
Tired of hearing the ads? Sign up for Whispering's Pure Stream and you can tune in commercial free. No talking, no ads, just beautiful, calm, peaceful solo piano music. Find out more at solopianoradio.com. How do you feel?
The whole idea is that you recognize this as a bad action when it's happening to you, but you fail to in fact you participate. You fail to recognize that invading all over the Middle East and bombing all over it. Not only you fail to recognize that is a bad idea, but also you're funding it to an extent. You put your share in. Okay. I'm sorry. The only difference, sir, here, as far as I can see, I mean, the Palestinians like to use their land and make money and sell people to the Israelis. They love that. It's just that Israelis say, no, we want the land. We want the profit that comes from this land. And we don't want you to take that profit. We want to take that profit, i.e. Bank of Israel. That belongs to some white people. That belongs to the Bank of England. That belongs to some white people. Not the rich white people. 10% of white people at the top. Not the 90% that I have to deal with, which are quite nice people. They have their moments, but in general, acceptable. But the top white people, the 10% top, 5% top, I don't know what's the percentage of these fuckers at the top, but these guys, that would include you. I understand you're part of the empire, so at one point you were the governor of Bank of England or something to do with the Bank of England. So, apparently you guys get to have a passport that goes all over the empire, still accepted all over the empire, and you can go and become an expat wherever you want, and the rest of us on this planet are stuck within that very confined space because you don't want us moving. You want you moving. You want Canadians to go all over. You don't want the brown people moving. You don't want the black people moving. You know why? Because the standard of living you have kept high in your land, and you have bombed the shit out of them by the money that you could have made your land better. You use that money to bomb the shit out of somebody else's land. With the money that you could have made your land better, you use that money to enforce the will of some corporations such as Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. That includes a very few individuals who own a lot of capital, just happen to have it. So the whole idea is that you recognize as being bad when it happens to you, but okay when it happens to brown people, black people. Still, Israel is a colonial project, just like all over Africa you had colonial project. Just like South Korea is a colonial project. Just like South Asia was a colonial. East India Company. Dude, you're speaking from a colony which was once formed, started wiping out the redskins, the natives of the land. They had the right to their land. You could have used that money to build Europe better. Why use the money to invade somebody else's land to say no, I'm here to build your land? It's sort of like you can build Europe better. Why expand without making it better? Why expand when you cannot afford it? Why expand? You have a budget deficit. Here's the thing, Mr. Mark Carney, Mr. Representative Massey. You have a budget deficit because of all this military expenditure. First of all, because if you have to pay for a military that covers the whole planet, that's very expensive. But that's why other countries' military budget can be 1/10 of yours, because they have to only cover one country. Apparently you think you have to cover the whole planet. And Mr. Trump once a couple of times said to South Korea, hey man, pay up, motherfucker. If we have to control the fucking planet, everybody else has to chip in. But the problem with this is that you're controlling the planet for the benefit of a very few people. In their benefit, not to the benefit of all. There is no, we control it so everybody can do business. Bullshit. Oh, come on. All the sanction business, Mr. These people, these creatures that come out, Peter Zehan basically said, this is the cornerstone of his world perspective, is that after World War II, we started providing security for everybody for just being our friends, and we didn't expect much. And just to be our friends, sort of like, yeah, sure. Aramco oil company, money was going to New York first, then going to Saudi Arabia, just like Iraqi oil money is right now going to New York first, then some of it is sent back to Iraq. What are you talking about? Mr. Thomas Massey, the budget deficit that you have is one because of really your military. 50% of your budget, or more than 50%, is going to the military. The way I understand budget, I can read a pie chart like Mr. Bill Maher said. Military and military related. The only military you should be concerned about are your veterans, because these people believed believed your stories, the stories that they were told, and they signed up, being good people, they signed up. But the story was a story told by a fool. So, or a bunch of fools. So you put a lot of military expenditure on the credit card. But here's the thing, Mr. Thomas Massey. You do have to have the deficit. This is the situation with when you're the reserve currency of the world. The world needs your money. If you don't give them, if you don't want to be a reserve currency of the world, that's a different story. As far as I understand it, I could be wrong. The world needs your currency because you're the reserve currency of the world. Anybody in large scale who borrows money from anybody else, they borrow it in dollars. And you have the only printer. You're the only one who's allowed. You and your banks are the only ones who are allowed to bring new dollars to existence. You have given this right to somewhat to Europeans as well, which again makes it a bad idea. The reason it's a bad idea is not a bad idea, but you have then you have to understand what's the problem. You always have to have a deficit because all this money that being lent in dollars with interest, nobody's printing the interest. So unless you continuously feed this this insatiable need of the world economy for more dollars so they can do business with, because they have to pay their interest in dollars and nobody's printing their interest. You know, at the most you're printing principals, nobody's printing interest. So the world, if you have a reserve currency, any currency that becomes a reserve currency, the world is going to be, if you have interest rates, the world is never going to not need your money. The world is always going to have a deficit of your money because nobody's printing the interest for them. They don't have a dollar printing machine in Saudi Arabia. They don't have a dollar printing machine in Iraq. They are not allowed to have one. So they have to spend what they get from you, the dollars that they get from the world system that you are the only supplier of dollar to. You're the only supplier of dollars to the world economy. So, and because nobody prints interest, and you're the only one printing principals every time you print and hand out, or you put on the computer and you send out, every time you do that, you have the right to do that. And you never do that to give it to somebody to pay their interest. They're always going to be in your debt because they keep borrowing from you and there is an interest rate. So, Mr. Thomas Massey, if you don't want your money to be a reserve currency, just say so. Hey, we don't want our money to be a reserve currency. We don't want to be an empire. We want to be a country. In that case, yes, you can balance your budget. But in this case, if your money, if there is an interest charged on money, and your money is, everybody borrows in dollars and has to pay their principal plus interest back in dollars, the whole system is always going to be deficient in dollars. In a normal way, at least 10% go bankrupt because of insufficiency of dollars to pay just their interest, because nobody prints the interest for them. My point is this: an empire of this sense cannot balance its budget, because if they try to balance their budget, if you try to balance your budget, the whole world is going into a recession, because they're going to run out of dollars to do business with. And that means they find another way, and that is they use a different currency. They start borrowing in a different currency. They have been doing so for some time now. When you become a manufacturing base and you produce what other people need, you become the holder of a lot of wealth. And this is what this is what threw me off, that some of these senators basically say it's the fault of China, and why are these Orientals are rich off our back? And I keep saying, these Orientals are rich because they stole our jobs, sort of like. Well, no, actually, they worked for their money. You wanted things built, you have an empire, you can print as much as you like, and instead of using it in a good way, here's the thing, Mr. Thomas Massey, you can have a deficit, but you also can not have inflation, because remember, the whole system is deflationary. If you continuously don't pump dollars into the system, it's going to stop working because there is insufficient money to pay the interest. So you are in this exalted position of being able to print money and live off of your printers. There are much better ways of living like this. This can be worked, but for example, you print money, you give your people, you tell them to see the world. They don't have to work. This is universal basic income. Go see Afghanistan. We understand this time of year, India is nice. We understand this time of year, China is very nice. You tell your people to travel. This is the main way could be, for a sane society, the main way of distributing wealth around, distributing dollars around the world, so their economy can function. Instead of bringing, another way of doing this, spreading money around the world, spreading dollars around the world, is war, through war. You can spread money, you have to spread dollars as an empire, not a country. As an empire, you have to spread dollars around the world, and you shouldn't worry about inflation, especially if that dollar is being spent outside of the United States. This is one way to go and continue going with the deficit, no problem, but a lot of this money is the world needs it, and it's being spent around the world by our tourists, by our citizens. That's one way to go, and the other way that unfortunately, the other path that you have gone down is the way of war. By way of war, you spread wealth, by all those subcontractors and people on the ground that the bases employ, and all the money that gets handed to the natives, the dollars. We all understand that pallets of dollars that rolled into Afghanistan and Iraq in order to buy a few officials here and a few officials there, in order to buy a few officials here and a few officials there, pallets, in order to subdue the natives. Buy the officials, subdue the natives, quiet the place down, because now you own it. That's the whole idea. You broke it to own it. You broke it to own it. Again, it repeats. You broke it in Ukraine to own it. BlackRock and Goldman Sachs broke it in Ukraine by their orders. Ukraine got broken, so now you can own it. Gaza got broken, so you can own it. Canada, I guess the next step is having a radio-free Canada. If you can have if somehow the white people in the South decide that no, if BlackRock and Goldman Sachs get really serious of owning Canada, they have to they give the go-ahead for VOA to start a radio-free Canada, and start and the CIA start funding some freedom fighters in Canada. So, the same way that the British and unfortunately Uncle Sam's managers were funding the freedom fighters of MEK for 60, 70 years now. It's like crazy people here, or Baluch freedom fighters of Baluchistan, who want to have an independent desert. protected by the British because, you know, they're weak and small, so they need protection from the British, just like the Kuwaitis. I mean, we create you and you're so small, you need our protection. Well, then why do you create Kuwait that now you have to provide protection to it? That was the whole purpose, wasn't it? Anyway, my point is this, Mr. Carney, we all see this. You should know that we know that you know that we see that you see that we know that what we see is what we see, and you should know that we also can analyze and can see what you can see, and we'll reach the same conclusion that you have reached. But, you know, you think we don't see it. You don't think you don't think that we see it, that you have decided that it's okay to be done in West Asia to the brown people, you know, expeditionary force going in and trying to, some rich white people going in and trying to unfairly take over some land without paying for it. They want to take over Canada without paying for it, i.e. they don't want to trade with you, they want to own you, BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. Any questions? You didn't want to trade with Iraq, that's why the sanctions. You don't want to trade with Iran, that's why the sanctions. You want to own them, just like you own Iraq, and Syria, and Libya, and Saudi, and Kuwait, and Dubai. These are all owned in London. It's all owned in London. Let's put it this way. Basically, all their bank accounts are in, the important bank accounts are in London. That's why the real estate in London has gone through the roof, that the native British can no longer afford, because, you know, you expect them to bring the wealth to you. Yes, they bring the wealth to you, but then they keep some of the wealth as cash in your banks, but they want to buy some property on the land as well, as an investment. Here's the thing, it is sort of like the 10% like the perks of this expanding the empire. Whoever has a bigger dick goes in and grabs the resources. But there is a there is definitely a racial line in it, in which, you know, white people discourage each other from taking land from each other, at least now, discourage each other, but from the Asians, no, that's okay. We should go and grab lands from them. From the Africans, we should fund some freedom fighters in Uganda and some freedom fuckers in Burkina Faso to, you know, in order to, you know, these freedom fighters fight, and, you know, they're on our side, and at the end we make the guy rich but milk the whole country. This is what the French have been still doing. Having the right to print the money for African countries. Are you kidding me? That having the right to print money, that basically saying that, again, if you have the right to print money, that means the African countries were always in debt because they borrowed with interest, and nobody was producing the interest in their country. Nobody was printing the interest in their country, and French had the right to print. Only the French had the right to print money. But you do understand that how the French benefited. They just printed money, gave it to the Africans who were using their money, the French money. They had the right to print their money as well, and people borrowed on this money, and they had to pay interest to the French for the money that the French had the only right to print. Now you have this right to print money for the world, and you have been just using it to invade land and grab land for BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. But you could have used it for something much better, like spreading your citizens around the world as tourists and spread that money around the world in that way. Again, Mr. Thomas Massey, as an empire, you're not just printing money for yourself, you have to print money for the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is borrowing money in your denomination, and they have to pay in your denomination, pay interest in your, beside the principal, they have to pay interest in your denomination, but nobody's printing that interest, has the right to print that interest for them in their countries, and you're the only people who have the right to print dollars. And because nobody prints interest, the system is always going to be insufficient of dollars, because nobody prints interest. Because the system is always going to be insufficient of dollars, because it's non-existent dollar that I have to pay in interest. Again, this is for the people at the back of the class. If I print a money called elephant money and give you 10 units of this elephant money, and give your brother 10 units of this elephant money, and give your sister 10 units of this elephant money, you have 30 units, 10 each. I tell you that next year I want, from each of you, I want 11. 10 plus 1% interest, I want $11 back next year. You say, okay, the three of you siblings go, between the three of you have $30. By the end of the year, the other two of them can have $11, or one of them can have $12, but by definition, by logic, the other two are going to be short each of $1, so one of them can make it, or many dollars, so one of them can make it with a lot of profits. Because, no new money has gone into the system. So you have to run a deficit just to keep the bankruptcies low. The bankruptcies are going to happen because of the dollar deficiency, but to keep the bankruptcies around the world low, you have to continuously feed the system, feed them dollars, because they're paying interest in dollars. My point is this: you have to decide whether you want to run an empire or a country. You can run a great empire. The solution is not to expand your military and work on behalf of like two companies, BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. As a joke, I'm saying, you're working on behalf of three companies: BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, and the Mars Corporation, belonging to the Mars family. You're working on behalf of like 3, 5, 1%, 2% of the society. You're not working on behalf of the average folks, as in like, nobody won anything because Iraq was taken over by BlackRock. Nobody won anything. Nobody got anything except people who had some money with BlackRock. So my point is this: you can run a great empire, Mr. Mark Carney and Mr. Thomas Massey. You can run a good white empire, but only if you understand that as an empire you have to go the way of tourism. In that way, feed the reserve currency that you print to the rest of the world. Or you can go towards the military and try to conquer some more land on behalf of BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. You have chosen to use this privilege of reserve currency to invade and grab land. And then these politicians had the audacity to say that the Chinese, why they have this money so they can come and buy our land. We grab their land. How dare they come and buy our land? And I'm thinking to myself, how dare they? They worked for the money. and the politician was sort of like, no, these Chinese, why are they rich? His idea was like, why are they rich, the Chinese? I mean, they're not white. Why are they rich? That was his perspective. I could feel it. He didn't say so, but I could feel that was his perspective. Why are they rich if they're not white? I mean, then that's the mentality of, I believe, the Tulsa massacre, the burning of that, black neighborhood, black suburb in which everybody was doing well economically, and basically people, the rich white folks started agitating the poor white folks to break up the suburb of these rich black folks, because why they have money if they're not white? That's exactly what I heard from this politician, who basically said, where have these Chinese got all this money from? Well, sir, they've been working their asses off. Anything else? It's not like they stole the money. You gave your production line, you told them to work for you, and they said, okay. They worked for you. They got some money. Some of them got some money, and some of them have bought where you said, capitalism. Remember that? What happened? When my corporation buys your corporations, that's capitalism. But when your corporation buys my corporations, that's invasion. That's exactly the mentality of the rich white folks. When we go grab their land, that's freedom. But if they come and try to grab even buy our land, that's invasion. If they actually want to come and live in our land, that's invasion. Not to mention, we go and kill to grab their land, that's okay. But if they come peacefully to work on our land, that's not okay. To the Sane Society. Mr. Mark Carney, the hypocrisy is thick, and it comes true, and it's like you don't walk the walk, you don't walk the way you talk, and that comes true as hypocrisy. You consider having a, when it comes to you talk of freedom to choose, independence. We have our thing, we have our family, please don't disturb us. But you were all okay when this happened in Iraq. Suddenly you felt the need to set them free, coalition of the willing. And the same thing in Libya, you set them free. You set the animals free so they can eat the people and then start eating each other. To freedom fighters. That's the thing. I mean, as if like none of you own a mirror, Mr. Mark Carney. It's like none of you own a mirror, but hypocrisy is thick. Mr. Massey, the elephant in the room is the military budget, and one of the reasons you need to keep control of the world is your reserve currency. You see, if your currency is going around the world as reserve currency, if you want to keep it that way, you somehow have to provide the security, so to keep it that way. You're not security. Basically, you're enforcing your currency as the reserve currency of the world with your military. Anybody who says I don't want to use your money as, in currency for international trade. You basically, fund some freedom fighters in there and, you know, break them up. Syria, Libya, Algeria, anybody who said I don't want to use the dollar as currency of international trade, because they understood that they're always going to be insufficient in dollars if they have to borrow money in dollars. Again, if you decide that you don't want to police it, police being international currency, the reserve currency of the world, then you won't have the need for such extensive military either. You see, being the reserve currency and having the biggest military goes hand in hand. And then the military becomes very expensive, can't pay for it, but you have to continuously print. Your budget, all the money that you're printing, you're feeding your military in order to enforce your dollar as reserve currency. You really don't have to do that. You can all do it without the use of the military. Keep the world dollar as reserve currency of the world, and print it and give it to your people as universal basic income, but send them around the world to spend this money, this dollar. And they're always going to welcome your tourists. If folks, Mr. Thomas Massey, they have a problem with your military because your military is only working on behalf of the Goldman Sachs of the world and the BlackRock of the world. Your military is working just on their behalf. After your military is done, those people benefit. While the military is there, also those people are benefiting. All the loans for production of all the ammunition needed. So your military is sucking up all the money in order to go destroy. And your people are not seeing much of that productivity and that money either, because most of it is going towards expeditionary forces in other people's lands. That includes Israel as well. You accept that and you say, no, in fact we need a bigger military budget. As much as you build, they're going to build. Everybody's going to build. You build more, they build more. Why not, stop the insanity and say, how about we print money, dollars, and we send our people, our citizens, give them as universal basic income, and we send them overseas. And in that way, you're not going to have inflation either, Mr. Massey. You're still going to run a deficit, because deficit comes with the empire, having an empire, being the reserve currency of the world. You're going to have a deficit, but it's nothing to worry about, because the world is always going to be in need of dollars. But you cannot shake the boat by continuously going to war on behalf of Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. You cannot afford that, because that money gets distributed between very few. You give the money as universal basic income to your citizens, free, give them, print them, tell them to go spend it in India, tell them to go spend it in China. This is the best way for your citizens to live, and your money, dollar, to remain world reserve currency without the use of the military. There's no need for military. My citizen, your citizen, hey, you want to keep your identities as countries, that's fine. But understand that the same rules that apply to the empire doesn't apply to a country. Those rules with regards to economics that apply to a country doesn't apply to an empire. The country that has an empire. The country that has an empire has the privilege of printing money and everybody else will be in need of that money as long as the empire behaves in a normal fashion. It's not too greedy to grab, lands on the other side of the planet. If the empire doesn't do that, everything is fine. Everybody was fine using. You are sanctioning countries because they're not handing over the keys to you. Sort of like, no, we don't want to trade with you. We want to own you. Why don't you hand the keys to us, or else we're going to come and bomb you. We're going to bomb you enough until you're ready to hand over the keys. That's the situation in Gaza right now, in Palestine. We are willing to bomb you enough until you're willing to hand over the keys. That's what you did to Iraq. That's what you want to do to, that's what Mr. Carney, that's what they want to do to Canada. You want to hand over the keys now or after Radio Free Canada and some funding of Canadian freedom fighters? Do you want to hand over the keys now or after the freedom fighters are through with you? Canadian freedom fighters. I mean, you don't recognize this is your foreign policy? And when I say it's your foreign policy, Mr. Carney, it's because you're a member of the British Colonial Five. And you don't discriminate between your own white citizens. So you're part of the British Colonial Five. And so your behavior, British behavior, Uncle Sam's behavior, they're all very much related. Because you want to be related. You say the Five Eyes. So, yes, the British sin is going to be considered your sin as well. And your sin is going to be the British sin. And Uncle Sam's sin, and Venezuela's, the New Zealand's sin, and Australia's sin. When hey, I believe the word is railroad. When you railroad the girl, and there's five of you, doesn't matter who went first, who was bigger, who was stronger, who was. When you form the coalition of the willing to go and rape Iraq, doesn't matter who was the bigger one, who was the smaller one, who gave political coverage, cover, and who gave the economic cover, who covered this and who covered. Everybody did what they were good at, and the British were also there. They're good at sucking dick. The British were always also there, and they had a couple of companies in Iraq, kept, portion of doing good. Are you fucking? I'm sure Canadians were there, officially, unofficially, But the main thing is that a lot of rich white folks are very worried about this is the main worry. Worry is these rich white people being worried of rich Asians, being worried and of rich brown people, being worried of rich Russians. This is the main problem here. It's not between people to people. It's between, the main problem is the rich people in New York don't like to see rich people in Russia. They think these motherfuckers don't have the right to be that rich. And the rich people in Russia, that 1 to 5%, that 10%, they can't, they say, well, why they can't see the rich people in New York? But mostly it's New York, because under orders from New York, half the world has been invaded. And before that, under orders from London and Paris, the other half of the world was invaded. The same half of the world was invaded, the non-white countries. Under order of New York, these countries have been invaded by these Anglo-Saxons, white, the Five Eyes, the white people from England and company. you have behaving in such a way, but you're not, you're not really your own. You think it's wrong if it's done to you, but if you're doing it to them, that's just fine. We are bringing freedom to them. We are bringing capitalism to them. We are bringing Christianity to them. We are bringing something to them, and we have the right to do that because we are better. We are better. Therefore, Christianity is better. We are better. Therefore, capitalism is better. We are better. Therefore, democracy is better. Although all the evidence is contrary to the fact that democracy is better. All evidence is contrary. To the contrary, we've seen it that, every time, every one of these democracies that you think you have, eventually becomes the same as the fucking British. Eventually, the royalty is formed in the society, in these democracies, and again, the royalty is going to rule. The royalty are the rich people who choose who has the right to rule, and sometimes they want to rule themselves. Up to, for example, up to Trump, the politicians were, poor people who were okay for working for rich people as politicians. And Trump said, okay, no, fuck this. I can do a better job than these cocksuckers. So, although he was rich, he used to sit on the other side of the desk. He decided to, try his hand on this side of the desk. Democracy really, name recognition is a big positive in your democratic system. What does that tell you? Name recognition is a concept well recognized in caste system. Trudeau, name recognition is a concept that is well established in the caste system. You have reached the point of having caste and having a ruling caste like the Clintons, and they both try their hands at, pleasing the peasants in order to be elected as the chief of the tribe. But again, none of you really, a lot of politicians eventually become very wealthy, but most politicians work for people who have money. People who have money really, don't have the time or the patience or to become politicians themselves. And the rich people don't want to be, a lot of politicians' job is to be a cocksucker. A lot of politicians' job is to try to please, especially the rich people. In your system, a lot of politicians are, basically their job is to please rich people. What kind of democracy is that your politicians their primary job is to please rich people, because poor people are not funding my campaign, my aims, my dreams. The poor people are not funding that. Rich people are funding my dreams. So tell me which one I have to suck off. That's your democracy. And the British have gone a step farther. They have a monarchy, and they consistently call it democracy because they give some options to these peasants to, but we all know who makes the ultimate decisions in England. The very rich people. The 1% make the decisions to go to war or have peace. The 1%. The rest are manipulated into war and peace. It's time for war, okay, war. It's time for peace, okay, peace. poor people are manipulated into by playing with their emotions and by wanting to create fear or not wanting to create fear. You know, this country is bad and that country is good. How do you figure? Because we own this country, but we don't own that country. But we like to own that country, so they're bad. I mean, Mr. Carney, didn't he hit you? It hit me like a brick wall when Mr. Trump basically said that these these Canadians in charge are nasty people. Dealing with them is nasty. They're nasty people. Oh, you don't recognize it? Didn't say that Saddam Hussein was nasty? They still say it. You don't recognize it? You were saying it about the brown people, weren't you? I mean, like 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Yesterday, you're funding Israel to say the native Palestinians are nasty people. And you say, yes, of course, we understand. They're very nasty. The hypocrisy is just blinding. But it's funny. The funny part about Radio Free Canada, which I think is going to start pretty soon. I'm looking forward to listening to Radio Free Canada. Salute. And no, sir, you don't get a pass just because you're white. Just the rich Canadians don't get a pass because they're white. Because, you know, when the wolves are hungry and they haven't found a prey, sometimes they turn on their own and they attack their own weakest one in order to survive. It's good for the pack, you know, it's good for the survival of the pack, but too bad for the weakest member. Yeah, again, back to the what they say, that you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You are the one on the other side of the sword helping in order to, you know, grab some land from brown and black people. How you like it now?